She thought she had the perfect setup, an insult disguised as a joke. But in just seconds, Trump turned the tables and left her struggling to recover. On live TV, the stage was set, a brightly lit studio in Los Angeles, packed with an audience that had come for a spectacle. The cameras were rolling, the tension thick, though no one had spoken a word yet. Seated at the glossy, oversized interview desk was Donald Trump, his posture relaxed, his expression unreadable. Across from him sat Lindsay Marie, a liberal talk show host known for her sharp tongue and pointed jabs at conservative figures. She had built a career on moments like these, baiting, provoking, watching her guests squirm under the heat of her questions. And tonight she had something planned. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, shifting in their seats. They expected controversy. They expected fireworks. Trump's interviews were never uneventful, and Moore knew exactly how to stir the pot. From the moment the cameras went live, she was on the offensive. "Mr. Trump, thank you for being here," she said with a saccharine smile, her voice dripping with false politeness. Trump nodded slightly, his hands folded in front of him. "My pleasure, Lindsay. Let's see if you can keep up." A few chuckles rippled through the audience, but Moore didn't flinch. She was used to this kind of banter. If anything, she welcomed it. The opening minutes followed a predictable pattern: politics, policy, the usual back and forth. Moore took shots, Trump swatted them away effortlessly. The audience seemed entertained, though they were waiting for something bigger, something more personal, and Moore was about to deliver exactly that. She shifted in her chair, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, as if preparing to drop a bomb. Then with a casual air she leaned in, her eyes gleaming with something just short of malice. Then she asked the question, but she had no idea what was coming next. For a split second the room froze, the air felt heavier, as if the temperature had just shifted. The audience, once murmuring and chuckling, fell dead silent. Even the camera operators, trained to remain detached, seemed to hesitate. Lindsay Moore kept her smirk, but something in her posture betrayed her. She had gone too far and she knew it. The words still hung in the air, bold and shameless. "Have you ever thought about cheating on Melania? Because let's be honest, she's kind of outdated." It was a low blow and she had delivered it without flinching. The insult was wrapped in a joke, but there was no mistaking the intent. She wasn't just prodding for a reaction. She was baiting him, daring him to stumble in front of millions of viewers. The audience didn't know whether to gasp or laugh. Some chuckled nervously, others exchanged wide-eyed glances. Even those who weren't Trump supporters could tell this wasn't just a political jab. It was personal, it was cruel. And for the first time that evening, Trump didn't respond right away. He just stared, not at Moore, not at the audience, but at the desk in front of him, his fingers lightly tapping against the surface. It was subtle, but the tension in the room was suffocating. Lindsay shifted slightly in her chair. She hadn't expected silence. She expected an outburst, a dismissive wave, maybe a crude joke in return, but not this. Then slowly, Trump lifted his head. His expression was unreadable, a mix of amusement, disbelief, and something sharper. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady. "Let me get this straight," he said, pausing just long enough for the weight of his words to settle. "You're sitting there on national television, calling my wife, the former First Lady of the United States, outdated." The word itself lingered sharp as a blade. Somewhere in the crowd someone muttered, "Damn." Lindsay gave a half-hearted shrug, clearly trying to maintain her composure. "Oh, come on, Donald," she said, forcing a laugh. "It's just a question, lighten up." Trump leaned forward slightly, eyes locked on hers. "It's not a question, Lindsay. It's an insult, but let's pretend for a second that you actually meant it as a real question." The smirk on her face wavered. Trump gestured toward the audience. "Imagine if I flipped it around. Imagine I was sitting here with a married female politician, a Democrat of course, and I asked her, 'Hey, have you ever thought about cheating on your husband? Because let's be honest, he's kind of outdated.'" A few murmurs rippled through the audience. Some nodded, others sat up straighter. Trump let that thought hang before continuing. "You'd have CNN running a special about how I'm a misogynist before I even left this building. The headlines would be screaming, and you'd be leading the charge, wouldn't you?" Lindsay opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. But Trump wasn't done yet. Lindsay Moore blinked. For the first time in the interview she looked unsure. The room was no longer hers to control. The audience, which had started the evening leaning in her favor, was shifting, not necessarily toward Trump but away from her. Trump leaned back in his chair relaxed, his expression unreadable, but when he